Proteins are polypeptides. Poly means they are many. They are made up of many units which are linked by peptide bonds. That is why it is called as polypeptides. So proteins, they help in the transport of nutrients across the cell membrane. Collagen actually gives that flexibility to the skin. Carbohydrates or polysaccharides are one of the best examples for biomacromolecules. Hello everyone, a warm welcome to another session on chapter 9, that is biomacromolecules. I am Dr. Divya, biology faculty, Vidyashram Pre-University College, Mysore, Temple of Excellence. So in the previous session, we had studied about some of the few biomacromolecules or biomolecules such as the secondary and the primary metabolites, and I told you primary and secondary metabolites are very important, not just to the plants, but they are also of great economic importance to the human beings, whereas primary metabolites are synthesized within the plants and they are helpful to the plants directly for protection, for growth purpose and all that. And when it comes to secondary metabolite, they are also synthesized in the plant, but they are not directly used by the plants. That is, though they are synthesized in the plants, they are of use to the human beings, such as we have the rubber and certain fragrant oils or medicinal oils such as the lemongrass oil, the sandalwood oil. All these are secreted by the plant itself, but they are not used by the plants. They are only useful for human welfare or for the economic well-being of the humans. And we also studied about the biomacromolecules, and I had also told you what is the difference between a biomolecule or a biomicromolecule and a macromolecule or a biomacromolecule. And we also learnt about few examples under that. In today's session, we shall discuss about the protein, the structure of the protein in general, and we shall discuss about the nucleic acids. So we shall begin. So to begin with, proteins. So what are these proteins? Proteins are polypeptides. Poly means they are many. They are made up of many units which are linked by peptide bonds. That is why it is called as polypeptides. So therefore, proteins are polypeptides. They are linear chains. As you can see, at a stretch, the proteins are arranged in one line. They form a linear chain. They are linear chains made up of amino acids. So if you remember, in the previous session, I had told that amino acids are nothing but proteins. They are made up of proteins. So therefore, what here here also it is the same. Proteins are nothing but they are made up of chains of amino acids. And I had also told you that the amino acids present in a human being is about 20 amino acids are involved, which makes up a protein chain. So therefore, different amino acids, say for example, we have thymine, there is serine, there is leucine, there is different types, cysteine, alanine, all these, proline, all these different types of amino acids, they make up a protein. As you can see, proteins, they are polypeptide. They are poly, many in number. Why many in number? There are different amino acids. Say for example, a chain of 20 amino acids, different amino acids make up a protein. So this is one protein amino acid, this is one amino acid molecule, here one, like this. Chains of amino acids, their linear arrangement, and these amino acids are linked by peptide bond. Therefore, there are more than one peptide bonds being formed because more number of amino acids are linked to one another. Therefore, they are polypeptide linear structures. And the proteins, they are a polymer of amino acid. They are made up of chains of different polymers. They are made up of different monomer units. What are the monomer units? They are made up of different amino acid units here. Therefore, they are the polymers of amino acids. And there are how many types of amino acids are the protein made up of? They are made up of 20 types of amino acids. Say for example, there is alanine, there is cysteine, then comes proline, tryptophan, lysine and leucine. All these different types of amino acids, 20 different types of amino acids come together or are linked together by peptide bonds to form a linear polypeptide chain, which is nothing but at the end called as the protein. So therefore protein is a heteropolymer. Why it is a, now I told you why it is a polymer. Why it is a polymer? It is made up of more than one monomer unit, right? Therefore it is a polymer. Now again, why it is hetero? Hetero means different. It is made up of different monomer units. Therefore it is a heteropolymer. Therefore they are heteropolymer and they are not a homopolymer. Why, when can I say they are a homopolymer? If, say for example, this is a protein molecule wherein it is made up of only one amino acid. For example, I'll take it as cysteine. Cysteine is an amino acid. If all the cysteines were linked, means it is a homopolymer. Why? Again here, homo means same, only it is made up of cysteine. It is a cysteine, only one monomer unit, that is only cysteine is there in that. There are no different types of amino acids being present because it is made up of only one type of amino acid can be a homomer. But is it correct? No. Why? Because proteins are not made up of only one type of amino acid, but they are made up of chains of different types of amino acids, that is 20 different types of amino acids. Therefore, that is why it is called as a heteropolymer and it is not a homopolymer. So, why it is not a homopolymer? Because homopolymer has only one type of monomer repeating n number of times. As I told you, here also it would be cysteine, here cysteine, 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 cysteine. Throughout, if it is cysteine, then it is a homopolymer. But here in this case, what? Amino acids are different types of amino acids are joined together to form a chain. Therefore, it is a heteropolymer. So, this is the general characteristic of a protein or a general structure of a protein. And there are various uses of proteins to human beings. We shall see what are the different uses of proteins here. So, proteins, they help in the transport of nutrients across the cell membrane. I told you, in a cell, in a plant or an animal body, there are numerous cells that are present, group of cells being present. And I told you there is a connection between these cells. They interact with one another, that there is exchange of nutrients and other material going place through these cells. So, the exchange of nutrients, especially between the cells through the cell membrane, actually takes place by the protein. So, one of the major important function of protein is to help in the transport of nutrients across the cell membrane. And one more is proteins also help the body to fight infections. That is, it helps in building immunity in the body. That is one of the major function of protein, to fight the infectious organism. So, anything, if we have enough protein or if our body is enriched with protein, then any kind of infectious organism such as a bacteria or fungi or virus is trying to cause diseases in us, then the protein provides some support to certain extent or helps our body to produce some immunity, therefore preventing those diseases or protecting our body to some extent against various microorganisms. So, that is one of the important function of the protein. And some of the proteins are hormones. Like I told you, the follicular stimulating hormone is there, which helps in the production of the follicle. So, this follicular stimulating hormone is nothing but made up of proteins. Then we have the few of the hormones that are secreted by the pituitary glands. The best example for those hormones are the growth hormones. So, majority of the growth hormones are also made up of proteins. So, some of the proteins are also hormones which help in women in the production of follicles, and also it helps in general in both man and women. It helps in proper growth of that particular individual. So, therefore, proteins, some of the hormones are also proteins, and some of the proteins are enzymes. Say for example, we have certain digestive enzymes such as the pepsin, trypsin. All these are the protein enzymes itself. They are made up of proteins. Then we have the keratin. So, our hairs, nail, all that is made up of keratin, which is nothing but a protein. So, therefore, some of the proteins are enzymes as well. So, these enzymes, they help in digestive purpose. And when it comes to keratin, keratin is the one which gives the rigidity to our hair or the strength to our hair. If the keratin or protein content in the hair is not proper, then it leads to breakage and splitting rustling of the hairs and all that, right? So therefore, these are few of the functions of the proteins wherein they act like enzymes as well. And one of the important protein that is there in the animals or the human beings is the collagen. Collagen actually gives that flexibility to the skin. So it will prevent the skin from aging fast, or it will prevent the wrinkle development in the skin, and that one protein that is present is collagen. So collagen, as the age of the individual increases, as we age, until we reach the old age, the collagen content in the body or the collagen protein completely reduces. Therefore, the wrinkles start to develop. Therefore, to maintain the youthfulness of the skin, the collagen actually helps, and it is the most abundant protein in the animal world. So which is the most abundant protein that is present in the animals? It is the collagen. Next, there is one more kind of protein which is usually seen in the biochemical cycle, such as the Kelvin cycle and all that, which is called as the ribulose biphosphate carboxylase oxygenase. So when you study these cycles, that is respiration in plants, photosynthesis in plants and all that, you will come across this particular protein. You will understand well. But here you need to know that this particular protein, that is Rubisco, it is called as ribulose biphosphate carboxylase oxygenase. This particular protein is very, very important for certain biochemical reactions to take place properly, especially in the case of plants, wherein it helps in fixing the carbon that is needed for the plants. It helps in carbon fixation. It is very, very important for carbon fixation, and this is the abundant protein in the whole of the biosphere. So almost in all the plants and all that, this particular protein is used for carbon fixation. So this is one of the function of the protein, that is especially the Rubisco protein. Next, moving on to some of the proteins in general, wherein I told you collagen. Collagen, it is the intercellular ground substance, and collagen, it is the most abundant protein that is present in the animals. And there is also trypsin. So trypsin, it is one example for the enzyme protein, and trypsin, it is a digestive enzyme which helps in the digestion of the food. Therefore, it is a digestive enzyme. And I had told you that some of the enzymes are also proteins. And hormones, insulin is one of the hormone that helps in the regulating the sugar level in the body, and it is secreted by the pancreas, right? So these insulin hormones are nothing but made up of proteins. Therefore, some proteins are hormones, for example insulin, and also I told you follicle stimulating hormone, some of the growth hormones. All these are the examples for protein as a hormone. Their main function is to function like a hormone. And also proteins, they act like antibodies. Why? Because they protect the body from certain infections. That is why they fight the infectious agents such as the microbes, the viruses, the bacteria, or the fungi and all that. And also some proteins help in act as sensory receptors. Sensory, to sense something, receptor, to receive signals. So say for example, the smell is a sense, right? You get the smell. So the nose will receive the smell signals, and those signals will be transported. How will the signals be carried? In the form of proteins. Proteins are the ones which carry these signals. Therefore, proteins are receptors. Their main function is to sense something such as smell, taste, hormones, etc. And next, we have one more protein called as the GLUT4. So GLUT4 protein, that is glucose T4 protein, enables glucose transport in the cells, because I told you they help in the transport of nutrients across the cell membrane, right? So that is one best example, that is GLUT4 protein actually helps in the transport of glucose into the cells or between the cells. So this is one of the best few examples. And also one more protein, that is Rubisco, which helps in the carbon fixation. All this is the different functions of the proteins. So next, moving on to the polysaccharides. So what are polysaccharides? They are made up of many monosaccharide units. and these are acid insoluble. So if you have seen the previous session, you will know that there are two types of fractions whenever you filter a plant extract or a animal extract, whatever it is. There are two types of fractions that are formed. One is acid insoluble fraction, which will remain in the filter, and one more is the acid soluble fraction, which will be the filtrate that is collected at the bottom of the beaker, and the one that remains in the solid form at the top will be the acid insoluble fraction. Therefore, polysaccharides are macromolecules. Therefore, they are acid insoluble and they remain in the, say for example, I've taken a funnel here wherein I've put a cloth, cheesecloth, and I've put the solution, whatever plant extract I have ground, I've put the solution. Whatever is micromolecule or biomolecule and it is acid insoluble, it will come and settle in the beaker here. So all this will be acid soluble. Whereas those which are larger in size, they will be acid insoluble and they will remain here. This is those that remains here in the form of pellet or in the form of slurry or paste, whatever remains in the cheesecloth or the cotton cloth or the muslin cloth, right, that will be acid insoluble. Acid insoluble. So therefore, one of the best examples for acid insoluble fraction is the polysaccharides. They are acid insoluble, and these polysaccharides, the best example we can take is carbohydrates, and they are another class of macromolecules. So we had studied about biomacromolecules, right? Those who have a density or weight of more than 1000 Dalton, they are the biomacromolecules, and carbohydrates or polysaccharides are one of the best examples for biomacromolecules. And polysaccharides, they are also made up of saccharides. What are saccharides? They are nothing but sugar. Poly, they are made up of many saccharide units, many sugar units. Therefore, polysaccharides are long chains of sugars. They are made up of long chains of sugar units. As you can see here, this is a glycogen where you can see they are made up of long chains of different sugar units like this. So, they are made up of long chains of sugar units, and they are thread-like in nature and they contain different monosaccharides as building blocks. So, they are made up of different monosaccharide units and therefore it is called as a polysaccharide. The best example that we can take of is the cellulose. Cellulose, it is a polymeric polysaccharide and it consists of only one type of monosaccharide, that is glucose. So, always remember, proteins are made up of different types of polymers or polymer unit, different types of amino acids, whereas polysaccharides can be made up of different types of saccharides or they can be made up of chains of only one saccharide unit. Say for example, we have cellulose. Cellulose, it is a polymeric polysaccharide. Here also it is polymeric. It is a polysaccharide made up of chains of sugar units. What is the sugar unit in the cellulose? It is nothing but glucose. So therefore, glucose is made up of chains of, say for example, here one glucose molecule, there is a bond, here one, therefore it is made up of chains of glucose molecules or chains of saccharides. What is the saccharide here? What is the sugar unit here? It is the glucose. So therefore, they are made up of only one monosaccharide unit, that is glucose. So what is cellulose made up of? Cellulose is made up of chains of glucose. So this is one of the best example for a polysaccharide. So there is a difference between the protein and the polysaccharide, as I told you. So next, moving on to studying about different forms of polysaccharide, or we will study polysaccharide taking different examples. So earlier itself I had taken the example of cellulose, wherein I told you cellulose, it is a polysaccharide but it is made up of only one type, chains of, but it is also a chain, but it is made up of only one type of monosaccharide unit, that is glucose. Here cellulose, therefore it is a homopolymer. So now I hope you understand understood what is a homopolymer and what is a heteropolymer. So while talking about proteins, I told you protein is a heteropolymer. Why is it a heteropolymer? Because it is made up of chains of amino acids. But is it made up of only one type of amino acid? No. It is made up of 20 different, the chains are of 20 different types of amino acids. Therefore, it is heteropolymer. In this case, cellulose, it is made up of, again it is a polymer, but it is made up of chains of only one monosaccharide unit, that is glucose. It is made up of chains of glucose. Here, glucose, 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 chains of glucose. Glucose is same, that is chains of glucose molecules. Same, it is same throughout. It is made up only of glucose. Therefore, it is a homopolymer. And cellulose, they do not contain complex helices, and hence they cannot hold I2. So I2 is nothing but iodine 2. Iodine 2, it is a solution that is actually used to stain the presence of starch, or to know how much starch grains is there. That is nothing but carbohydrate, right? Polysaccharides are nothing but carbohydrate, which is cellulose, starch and all that. So therefore, in order to know that, one experiment wherein to the plant material or to the cells, it will be stained with, or it will be soaked, the plant cell will be soaked in iodine 2. Therefore, based on the coloration, if it develops blue color, we can count how much of starch grain is present and all that. But here, this cellulose, it cannot hold the iodine 2 solution or iodine 2 stain because it does not contain complex molecule. Therefore, cellulose under the microscope also it remains colorless. Next, talking about different variants of cellulose. So under cellulose, there are different variants that are present. Say for example, we have starch, then glycogen and inulin. So these are the different variants that are present. So starch, it is a storage structure. It stores starch. So there is an experiment wherein we can take peeling of a plant leaf or something, or a thin section of a plant for example, and place it in a slide and add 2 drops of 2% iodine, that is I2, 2 drops of I2 stain or solution. As soon as we drop 2 drops of I2 stain solution and observe the material under the microscope, we can see inside the cells, we can see blue colored starch granules like this. So therefore, it means that starch, that particular granules, they are the storage structures for the starch. So therefore, starch, it is present as a storehouse of energy in the plant tissues. In the cells, we can see when blue colored granular structures inside the cells, as soon as iodine, the cell is treated with iodine, 2% iodine solution or I2 solution. So therefore, these actually starch structures that are present in the plant cells, they act as the storage house wherein lots of energy are being stored and therefore supplied for all the biological activities to take place in the plant cells. So therefore, they are present as storage house of energy in plant tissues. And starch, it forms helical secondary structure, and because it is made up of complex helices, or because it is made up of complex helical structures, it can hold the iodine molecules, that is 2% iodine molecules or I2 molecules, it can hold in the helical portion. And because it can hold the iodine solution, it gives the blue color. Therefore, the starch I2 is blue in color. So anything, say for example, rice water, you take rice water and to that you add 2% iodine solution, immediately the rice water will turn blue in color. Why? Because there is starch will be present in that. But the same thing cannot be followed for cellulose. Why? Because cellulose is not made up of complex helical structures. Why? Because if the helical structures are present, then only they can hold the iodine solution. Otherwise, 2% iodine solution. Otherwise, they cannot hold. Therefore, cellulose will remain colorless itself. So that is the difference between the cellulose and the one of the starch, which is a variant of cellulose. Next, talking about glycogen. So glycogen, it is usually present in animals, and in a polysaccharide chain, in a glycogen chain, the right end, it has 2 ends. The right end, it is called as the reducing end, and the left end is called as the non-reducing end. So the right end, it is called as the reducing end, and the left end is called as the non-reducing end. And also it is made up of branches, as you can see the structure. So as you can see, the right end, it is the reducing end, and the left end, it will be the non-reducing end. And it also has branches. And glycogen also, they are the storage house for energy. So they are very, very important in the case of animals. In the case of plants, the storage house for energy is the starch, and in the case of animals, the storage house for energy is the glycogen. Next, talking about inulin. So inulin, here it is a polymer of fructose, means glycogen, it is a polysaccharide, it is made up of different glycogen units, whereas inulin, it is made up of different fructose units. All these are homopolymers. Here inulin is made up of chains of fructose units. So it is made up of fructose. And here one more point about cellulose, especially this particular inulin, is it does not contain complex helices. So there are three types of variants actually. One is glycogen, one is starch, and one more is inulin. Starch can hold 2% iodine molecules, or iodine molecules in general. Why? Because it has complex helical structures. Whereas inulin, they cannot, they are also a type of cellulose variant, but they cannot hold the iodine molecules. Why? Because they do not have complex helical structures. Therefore, they cannot hold the I2. They cannot hold the I2, or they cannot hold the 2% iodine molecule. So this is about the different variants. So in a glycogen chain, there are two ends, that is the left end, which is called as the non-reducing end, and the right end, that is called as the reducing end. So it has a carbon group there towards the right end. Therefore, it is called as the reducing end. So that is, here there is no, on the left end there is no carbon group that is present. Therefore, it is a non-reducing end. So this is about the different variants that are present in cellulose. What are the different variants? We have starch, glycogen, and inulin. So next, talking about the different role of cellulose. So what is the function of cellulose? So cellulose, where it is present majority, it is present in the plant cell wall. So a majority, the major portion of the plant cell wall is made up of cellulose. And the paper, that is why plants are used in the paper industries for making paper. What is that paper that we write on? It is mainly made up of cellulose. So paper made from plant pulp and cotton fiber is cellulosic. So why? Because the cell wall is mainly made up of cellulose. That is why cellulose is very, very important in the paper industry. That is why the plants which contain, wherein the plant cell walls contain cellulose, and the cotton fibers which also contain cellulose, they are used in the paper industries for manufacturing paper. So this is one of the major economic importance, or the role of cellulose in improving the economy. So next, talking about the complex polysaccharides. So complex polysaccharides are made up of amino sugars and chemically modified sugars such as glucosamine, N-acetyl galactosamine, etc. So these are complex in nature. So their simple polysaccharides were made up of just one monomer unit, or it was made up of just one monosaccharide, chains of one monosaccharide. If it was cellulose, it was made up of chains of one particular sugar unit, that is glucose. So we studied about that. They are simple polysaccharides. But when we talk about complex polysaccharides, they also are made up of chains of different units, wherein they are made up of amino sugars, and they are also made up of chemically modified sugars such as glucosamine, N-acetyl galactosamine, etc. And these complex polysaccharides are usually found in the exoskeleton of arthropods. You know, arthropods, the cockroach and all, is one of the best example for arthropods, wherein the cockroach whole body, you have studied in the animal kingdom, the cockroach whole body is covered by an exoskeleton, which is a crust-like structure that actually protects the organs of the cockroach. So it is the exoskeleton of arthropods. They are made up of complex polysaccharides called as chitin. So the best example for a complex polysaccharide is chitin, and the best example for a simple polysaccharide, we can take it as cellulose. What is the difference here? Simple polysaccharides, they're made up of chains of only one monosaccharide. But the complex polysaccharides are also made up of chains of different compounds such as the amino sugars, and also they are made up of the chemically modified sugars such as the glucosamine and acetyl-galactosamine, etc. And they are usually found in the exoskeleton of arthropods, that is certain insects, and they are one of the best example for a complex polysaccharide is chitin. So the exoskeleton is usually made up of the chitin, and these complex polysaccharides are mostly homopolymers. They are also homopolymers, but they are made up of complex substances such as amino sugars and chemically modified sugars. So both the simple polysaccharides in general, they are homopolymers, but it varies depending on the complexity of the saccharide they are made up of. So next, moving on to studying about the nucleic acids. So nucleic acids are one of the important components which are usually present in the DNA, right? So nucleic acids, they are also the macromolecules, and therefore they are acid insoluble. They cannot penetrate through, they do not dissolve in acid, and they do not come down as a filtrate, but they remain in the cheesecloth itself. So therefore they are acid insoluble fraction, and they are polynucleotides. They are made up of many nucleotide units. What were the nucleotides? We had adenine, guanine, cytosine, thymine, uracil. All these are the different nucleotides that is present in the DNA and the RNA, right? So they are made up of polynucleotides, and together with the polysaccharide, that is together with the sugar unit and together with the polypeptides, these form a true macromolecular fraction of any living tissue or cell. Why do they form a macromolecular fraction of any living tissue or cell? Because they are present in almost all the cell. They are the genetic material that is present in the nucleus of all the cells, right? And what is this made up of? It is made up of polysaccharides, that is, it is made up of sugar units, as well as it is made up of polypeptides. So these are the different components of the nucleic acids, and for nucleic acids, the building block is a nucleotide. So previous session itself we have discussed what is a nucleoside and a nucleotide. So a nucleotide, actually it has three chemically different components, such as it has a heterocyclic component, and it has a sugar unit, that is a monosaccharide, and it has a phosphoric acid or a phosphate. So it has a heterocyclic component, it has a nitrogenous base, it has a adenine, and to that, say for example, if I take adenine, it has a adenine. To that adenine, one side will be the sugar unit and the other attachment will be of the phosphoric acid or the phosphate unit. Therefore it together, a nucleic acid or a nucleotide, that is the difference between a nucleoside and a nucleotide. Nucleosides will have only the sugar units attached, but whereas the nucleotides will have a sugar unit attached as well as a phosphate molecule or a phosphoric acid attached. So that is the difference. Say for example, I have taken the example of adenyllic acid here, wherein one side it is a heterocyclic compound which is made up of one heterocyclic unit is there. It is made up of a heterocyclic unit, then it is made up of a nucleotide, that is we have adenine on one side, and one side there is a phosphate sugar unit and a phosphate group that is attached. So you can see here PO4, one P here, O, second, third, fourth. It is made up of a phosphate unit, a heterocyclic compound, and a nucleotide and a monosaccharide. So these are the different compounds. A monosaccharide, that is a sugar unit it is made up of. If it is a DNA, it is a deoxyribose sugar unit. If it is a RNA, it is a ribose sugar unit. So these are the different types of components that are present in a nucleotide. Therefore, a nucleic acid is made up of, altogether it is made up of three different components. So next, talking about the different components of the nucleic acid. I told you it contains a heterocyclic compound, it contains a sugar unit, and it has a phosphate group, right, or a phosphate molecule. So first, talking about the heterocyclic compound that is present, one of the three components of the nucleic acid. So heterocyclic compounds are nothing but the nitrogenous bases. So I had taken the example of adenine. So adenine and uracil. So adenine is one of the nitrogenous base. We have adenine. If it is a DNA, the different nitrogenous bases that are present are adenine, then it is thymine, then we have cytosine, then guanine. And if it is a RNA, there is adenine, and instead of thymine, uracil is present, and cytosine and guanine. These are the different heterocyclic compounds that are present. They are nothing but the nucleic acid, which are adenine, guanine, uracil, cytosine and thymine. So I can show in the previous slide again. This is the heterocyclic compound that it is made up of. It is a nitrogenous base. It is nothing but a nitrogenous base. So here adenine, I've taken the example of adenine. So adenine is a purine, whereas uracil is a pyrimidine. So these are the different nitrogenous or heterocyclic compound that is present. So adenine and guanine are nothing but purines, while the rest, that is adenine, it is a purine. Again, guanine is also a purine, but thymine, cytosine and uracil are pyrimidine. So this is the difference here. And the skeletal heterocyclic ring, it is called as purine and pyrimidine respectively. So when it is called a purine, if the heterocyclic ring is a adenine and if it is a adenine and a guanine, then it is a purine ring. If it is a cytosine, a thymine or a uracil, then it is a pyrimidine ring. Based on what type of nitrogenous base it is made up of, it is decided whether it is a purine ring or a pyrimidine ring. And this is the first component that it is made up of. What is a component? It is one component is the heterocyclic compound, right? So next component is the monosaccharide. It is made up of a monosaccharide unit. So monosaccharide, it is nothing but a saccharide. Whenever the term saccharide comes, we should understand it is a sugar. Here, the sugar that is found in the polynucleotide chain, it is either a ribose, that is a monosaccharide pentose, or it is a 2-deoxyribose. I told you, if it is a ribose, it is a component of the RNA. If it is a deoxyribose, it is a component of the DNA. Therefore, if it is in the RNA, if the adenine can be attached to a ribose sugar, or if it is a DNA, then the adenine will be attached to a deoxyribose sugar. So that is the difference. So the monosaccharide unit that is present in, if it is a RNA, it is a ribose sugar, and if it is a DNA, it is a 2-deoxyribose sugar. And a nucleic acid that is containing deoxyribose is called as the deoxyribose nucleic acid, that is the DNA. And that which contains the ribose sugar, it is called as the ribonucleic acid or the RNA. So now you have understood. I'll tell you two things, two components. So it can be a purine ring with a attached to a deoxyribose sugar. What it means? It is a DNA, that is either purine ring, either it can be a adenine or it can be a guanine that is attached to a deoxyribose sugar. Therefore, two components is over now. So now I'll talk about the third component. So what is the third component? It is a phosphate group, and phosphate, they form the backbone of the nucleic acid. They are very, very important. So you know that DNA is a helical structure. It is coiled, right? Like this, it is coiled. So how is it coiled? It is because of the phosphate that is present, the phosphate group actually. So phosphate group, in the previous slide itself you have seen. So in order to make you understand clearly, I will tell you again, what is this nucleic acid? It is made up of three components. That is, it is made up of a heterocyclic compound. Say for example, here I have taken the example of adenine. So it is a purine ring. It is made up of a purine heterocyclic ring. That example, adenine. And also, it is made up of a phosphate group, and also it is attached with a pentose sugar. If it is attached, so phosphate group is also attached, PO4, phosphate group is also attached. Therefore, in the case of sugar, if it is attached to a ribose sugar, then it is a RNA. If it is attached to a deoxyribose sugar, then it is a DNA. Or in other case, I can say if it is attached to a pentose sugar, it is a RNA, and if it is attached to a deoxyribose sugar, it is a DNA. So this is about the nucleic acid. So since you know about these now, it will be easy to understand in the next session about the DNA, the Watson and Crick model of DNA and all that. So I hope you understood this session very well. In the coming session, we shall discuss in detail about the nucleic acid, wherein we'll discuss about the structure of the DNA, what is it made up of, that is the Watson and Crick model of DNA, all that we'll discuss in the coming session. So I hope you understood this session well. We shall meet again in the coming session. Thank you.